Hello everyone, today I'll be guiding you through your MYP journey for Pareto Prep's summer course. Now, let's begin. Introduction to Biology. I'll be covering you the MYP Biology basics and the topic energy for today. Now, let's begin. What is biology? Biology for exactly MYP specifically MYP, it focuses on developing conceptual understanding and inquiry-based learning in the fields of biology. It encompasses topics such as cells, organisms, genetics, and the interactions with the environment. Also, it explores the worlds of living organisms, covering topics like cell biology, genetics, evolution, and ecology. Also, they delve into the practical applications of these concepts, such as environmental conservation and ethical consideration in the scientific research. Now, my main goal is for you to be able to answer MYPE assessment's question clearly and be able to answer DBQ questions and improve your critical thinking skills so that you won't have any trouble later on with IBDP courses as well. Now, today, like I said before, we'll be starting with energy. Now, what is energy? Energy is all around us, and it's not only a topic that's mentioned in physics. Heat energy, kinetic energy, light energy, they're all energies. Now, energy is something that we all need to survive. Energy is utilized in various processes of living organisms. Basically, without energy, living organisms won't be able to operate. Now then, what's the energy that us living organisms utilize? Well, it's something called ATP. But ATP isn't exactly a type of energy, like heat energy or light energy. Well, it's a sort of energy currency, meaning it contains energy, but it's not exactly energy. Well, think of it like this, money. Money itself doesn't do anything, right? But you give out money or pay with your money using your money or currency to buy something you want, right? ATP is exactly like this. You want a certain process, such as muscle contraction. Then you pay with your ATP, giving them energy so that you can muscle contract or muscle expand. Now then, ATP, how exactly does this work? To identify its process and workage, we must be able to identify its structure first. ATP, below right here, it's a diagram of the ATP structure. ATP consists of a ribose, a nitrogenous base, and 1, 2, 3 phosphate groups. And in order for ATP to release energy, one phosphate group must be broken off from the ATP. And this breakage converts ATP into ADP, which later on is converted back into ATP for later usages. And when it breaks off, it releases energy, and this released energy is used to power processes such as muscle contraction, active transport, and biosynthesis. Now then, where does this energy exactly come from? Well, we have largely two processes. ATP itself isn't consumed or intaken, while unlike our computers or robots, we're not plugged in energy, while energy itself is created inside our bodies, or I must say ATP is synthesized inside our bodies or living organisms. Then how do we exactly synthesize? Well, remember, you eat food, right? And food is often called what? The fuel source for our bodies. And this fuel is later converted into ATP. And this converting process is called photosynthesis or cellular respiration, which we'll be covering later on next page. Now then, let's begin with photosynthesis first. Now, we all know what photosynthesis is, right? It's something that a plant does to create energy. All right then, where does it occur? And what's its exact process and its equation? First of all, photosynthesis is a process that converts light energy into chemical energy. Basically, that's why the plants need sun, to absorb the light energy given off by the sunlight and turn this light energy absorbed into chemical energy that can utilize. And where does this occur? It occurs in the chloroplast, which is inside a plant cell. And chloroplast uses sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water to create the energy required for the plants. Now then, let's take a look at the equation below. We can identify CO2, H2O, and C6H12O6, and O2, which is oxygen. Then, first of all, what is light energy and where is the chemical energy such as ATP in this equation? I thought you said photosynthesis created ATP. Well, light itself isn't exactly a chemical molecule, so we can't really describe or write it into a chemical equation as a molecule, but it's still there. Without light, this process itself cannot proceed. Now then, okay, I got the light part. Then where's the chemical energy? ATP. I thought photosynthesis created ATP. Well, let's take a look at this molecule first. C6H12. What is this molecule's name? It's called a glucose. Glucose is a building block of carbohydrate, which is a food type. And carbohydrates is one of the main fuels for our bodies, right? Without carbohydrates, we can't operate and we starve. This glucose is later converted again into ATP. Then, wait, I have a question. Isn't that other process? No. This whole process is a part of photosynthesis. But for MYP right now, all you need to know is that this process creates glucose, and this glucose is later on converted into ATP, which is utilized later on inside the plants for growth and transport of water along its stems. Now that we covered photosynthesis, let's move on to cellular respiration. Now, cellular respiration. Cellular respiration. What is cellular respiration? Well, as the name gives off, it's something a cell breathe, right? Respiration means breathing. Now, in cellular respiration, which is another process for ATP synthesis, it has two types, aerobic and anaerobic types. For aerobic respiration, like the name gives it off, it's a process that utilizes oxygen to create ATP. And anaerobic respiration, obviously, as the name gives it off as well, it doesn't utilize any oxygen, but it still creates ATP then. Wait, but why are there two processes in the first place? Well, aerobic. Aerobic respiration is when your body subconsciously creates ATP constantly. It's not quite a fast, instant process, but it keeps on going unconsciously, while anaerobic respiration is typically used when you need large amounts of ATP instantly, such as lifting a barbell or sprinting. That sudden movement of muscle contraction requires huge amounts of ATP, and the muscle demands huge amounts of energy for its movement. So, anaerobic respiration covers that huge supply and demand. And right here, same as the photosynthesis equation, you must memorize each of these equations later on for you to answer the MYP e-assessment questions. And let's move on. Now, finally, DBQ. DBQ is a database question. It's a type of exam questions that require students to analyze or interpret specific scientific data, often presented in graphs or pictures or passages even. Now, for you as a student, you must be able to analyze and identify the given hints and data that the question asks you for. So let's dive right into it. So for number one, state two processes in human cells which require energy. Wait, I haven't learned this, and you haven't taught me. Well, that's the thing about DBQ questions. You must have huge knowledge of the entire biology topic for you to answer the DBQ question perfectly. But don't worry. You don't really need to consume the whole textbook for you to get a full mark. You just need a bit of common sense and some studying and a lot of practice because most DBQ questions often come across each other one by one. So now let's begin. State two processes in human cells which require energy. First of all, this question itself isn't that hard. We just haven't learned it yet. So a human cell, what does a human cell do anyway? Well, just think. Doesn't a cell move? Right, so we can just write that down, cell movement. And because it asks for two processes, so then let's think. Wait, a cell, what does a cell do? It grows, right? And it does what? It multiplies. Basically, it divides, right? Well then, that's a process. Wouldn't that require energy as well? It does. So we can just write DNA synthesis or just replication. Now, we got that out of the way. Number two, suggest a reason for increasing energy requirements as boys grow older. Wait, I really haven't learned this. Well, don't think of it too hard. Just use your common sense. So just think, why would boys need more energy when they grow older? Boys grow, they get larger, right? Their body mass increases, thus having more cells. And what did I just say in number one? Cells use energy. More cells means more energy usage, right? So we can just write that down. Because boys have more cells when they grow older. Right? It's simple. Or just, you can say body mass increase. Now, for number three, this is the part where you need the data sets and take a look at the data sets and graphs to answer these questions. Now, number 3A, calculate the percentage increase in energy requirements for 14 to 15-year-old boys that start playing computer games and start training with football team. Then, we must be able to identify which sections we need to analyze. So it's asking us for 14 to 15-year-old boys, which stops playing computer games and starts training football team. So let's take a look at the table. Obviously, we must take a look at the male section and close our range into the 14 to 15-year-old range. Then we have low activity, moderate active, and very active levels. Since it's asking us stops playing computer games to training a football team, we must take a look at the low activity levels and compare it to the very active levels, which gives us a number of 14.4 and 10.6. And because it's asking us to calculate the percentage increase, we can formulate an equation where 14.4 subtracted by 10.6 divided by 10.6 and times it by 100 to give us a percentage, which equals 35.8%. Now moving on, B. Explain how extra energy is used in the boy's body. Now, this question isn't that difficult either. So extra energy, where will it go? Because the boy is moving, it would obviously be utilized in where? Because the boy is moving, muscle contraction. Now then, number 4. What will happen in a boy's or girl's body if A, they eat food each day containing more energy than the requirements? We all know that. What would happen? We get fat. Now, let's put this in a scientific sentence. First of all, fat to obese. And why would they become obese? Because food is what? Food is fuel. If we have large amounts of food in our bodies or fuel in our bodies, they store, right? In the form of what? They store in the form of fat. So for this question, we can answer it with converts to fat. The extra energy or just extra fuel converts to fat, making them obese. And for B, they eat food each day containing less energy than their requirement. Well, it's the opposite of A, right? Then what would happen? Obviously, they would get skinny, lose mass. So for B, just write down lose body mass. Why? Because the body will utilize the stored energy or the stored fat to fill in the lacking energy that the body requires for their movement or processes. Now, number 5. A. State the trends in energy requirements as boys and girls grow from 15 to 16 to 17 to 18 years old. Then we must take a look at the table again and head back to 15 to 16 and 17 to 18 section. Let me just get this out of your way. Now, since it's asking us for boys and girls, we must include both females and females in our analyzation and take a look at the age range between 15 to 16 and 17 to 18. Now, it's stating us to explain a trend. Well, the trend is, let's take a first look at females. Low activity levels, 8.9 to 8.9, 10.4 to 10.5, 12.0 to 12.0. They show barely any difference. So you can just write down for girls, there are barely any changes. While for boys, you can see that it shows an increase from 11.3 to 12.1, 13.3 to 14.3, and 15.3 to 16.4. So for boys, on the other hand, they show increase in energy requirement. Now, finally, the last question. Draw a bar chart to display the energy requirements for moderately active boys and girls, for all boys or for all girls, which you must be careful not to display all boys and girls. You must choose between the boy section, or the girl section. So for me, I'll choose the male section. And to draw a bar chart, you must first display both the y-axis and identify the x-axis. Because it's asking us to display the energy requirements, the x-axis needs to be energy. And the x-axis needs to be boys, with all the age ranges for moderately active section. So which is going to be this table. So you must label it moderately active boys and include all of the age ranges, which is 1 to 2, 7 to 8, and etc. until finally 17 to 8. And draw bar charts according to the numbers, which is 17 to 18 will be the highest, and 1 to 2 will be the lowest in full. So that's how you typically solve a DBQ question, by analyzing the data sets and all passages that's given in the question. So that's about it. Thank you for listening.